Ladies and gentlemen, this is Ryan McCormic, and he runs an awesome show called The Outer Limits of Inner Truth. He's interviewed Chung Fu many times, and I've just really loved his questions. It's a great honor to be interviewing him today.
Well, it's a great honor to be here with you, Mr. Jerome.
Thank you, brother.
Your amazing family. And for those who are watching, who've heard my voice on the show, who thought that I was going to be better looking, sorry to disappoint you. I came to Earth for two reasons: to interview Chung Fu and to be a good argument for birth control. And I am accomplishing both. Very good.
Right on. So the first question is, how did you meet Chung Fu?
It's a quick story about Mr. Fu. I call Chung Fu Mr. Fu. I don't know what it is. I just think I have for him. He's awesome. Chung Fu is awesome. Chung Fu used to be channeled through a individual named Marshall Lever. And Marshall Lever was a teacher of one of my greatest teachers, was Stuart Wilde. And Stuart Wilde is a metaphysical visionary, and he taught all over the world. So when I started my radio show in 2014, my understanding is that I don't know how it happened, but I think it was either you, Jerome, or Sally, or somebody reached out and said, "Would you like to do an interview with Chung Fu?" And I knew who he was, and I was so shocked because we'd only been on the show. Our show had only been on the air for a few months, and Chung Fu wanted to make this exclusive appearance on the Outer Limits of Inner Truth, so I didn't know what to expect. But that's how I really became acquainted. I don't know what happened, but it was there. And once it happened, it was like this incredible connection. I felt so connected to Mr. Fu because I had interviewed other channel spirits before, and I never really got I know all channel spirits are doing their own thing, but I didn't like them as much as I liked Mr. Fu. Mr. Fu had a really awesome sense of humor. Mr. Fu didn't expect you to worship or to honor him. He was just like, "Hey, I'm here to help humanity." And I thought it was awesome. So that's how it first started happening, and it's gone ever since.
Awesome. How would you say Chung Fu's teachings are relevant to America today?
Well, in America today, if you're from the outside looking in, you probably see a bunch of people with ever-growing waistlines that are upset and fear-based all the time. Everything is an outrage, and perpetually outraged. So Mr. Fu coming in with his teachings of love, compassion, empowerment, standing with you instead of standing above you. These are all cutting-edge teachings that I think the people of America absolutely need to hear. They need to know that they don't need to be led, but maybe to be encouraged, to be encouraged to be their best. So I think that Mr. Fu, carrying this banner of light, carrying this beautiful frequency of energy and love and compassion, is something that not only Americans need to hear, but I think people across the world need to hear. I think it's long overdue that we started to tune within ourselves and start working on ourselves, becoming leaders for each other, as opposed to following, some, corporate placed leader or demagogue out there. So I think Mr. Fu is putting a lot of wonderful energy. It's something that the world needs to hear.
And I think in the last show, we talked a little bit before we aired about feeling excited to, at some point, when time allows, to bring Chung Fu abroad. Where are some of the areas you could see Chung Fu working in the States?
I could see Mr. Fu going to Arizona, Sedona, Arizona, because it's a really beautiful, wonderful place. There's some really good teachers that are out there. But I believe that wherever Mr. Fu goes, or Chung Fu goes, there'll be the right people that follow. When I say follow, which means attend, listen, because you guys have been doing these seminars on weekends that are really wonderful. And the people who are listening to our program, they go to them and they're very touched by it. So, I don't think it's so much matter of the place. As long as he's there, I think people will come.
And you've done quite a few interviews now of Chung Fu.
Yeah.
On your Outer Limits of Inner Truth radio show. What feedback has most moved you from your audiences?
The feedback that has most moved me, there have been some people, they were just so touched. And I call my listeners too. I don't just email them. They send me, I like to call all the listeners if they can. And some people have been moved to tears about how touching the teachings were, and how Mr. Fu's teachings help people to take action necessary within themselves to grow. So that they find Mr. Fu's teachings very refreshing, very cutting edge, very unique, and they will go to the seminars. They'll do the teleseminars that you guys have. So I'm happy that people appreciate the interviews. I'm happy that we're able to ask Chung Fu questions, hopefully that Chung Fu has been asked before. And that's the whole foundation of our programs, to ask great teachers questions that have been asked before. But the fact that people do write and they do appreciate it, and a bunch of people, we've interviewed Chung Fu, I think 4 or 5 times, and they're already asking, when's Mr. Fu coming back? When's Mr. Fu coming back? I'm like, well, I have to ask what Mr. Fu's up to.
Is that a lot? Do you get a lot of
Yes,
requests?
absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, as soon as we do an interview with Chung Fu, our listenership skyrockets. It's incredible. It's like they know that they can hear Mr. Fu on the Outer Limits of Inner Truth show. It's awesome. I think it's because Chung Fu's been coming on the program since 2014, and I do a search for it, and if I look up Chung Fu, it comes up right away on our show. So it's really wonderful, and it's a frequency too. When people listen to the program, it's not just the words that Chung Fu says, but it's the energy, it's the presence. It's knowing that you're in the presence of a being that is walking with you, that's sending you love. So it's wonderful.
Fabulous. Love to know about how you conceived of the whole idea of your radio show and how it's evolved from the start to now. Yeah, the whole evolution of your show.
Well, the evolution of the show is probably started about 2013. I've always been a journalist in some capacity. I do public relations, so I've written articles before about this, but then I've also been curious about metaphysics. And at one point I was talking to all these different teachers and just got curious, and they were saying that I was asking them questions they hadn't been asked before. And when I first came in contact with Stuart Wilde, I'd sit there and talk to him because I read his books, and we would have these long conversations that I kept on asking question after question after question. So the idea dawned on me that I should do this on the radio. And then when Stuart Wilde passed in 2013, it was just so hard, and I wanted to do something to honor him. And I thought that, okay, well, if I have a radio show, I could put together a bunch of people that knew him, and we could present a perspective on Stuart that the world maybe hadn't seen. So I think that when Stuart died, as painful as it was, I tried to take that pain from that event and do something with it. And I think that's one of the reasons why the Outer Limits of Inner Truth radio show is here. Because Stuart was fearless. Stuart would seek out questions and answers regardless of where it was. He was very passionate about going to hell. For some reason, he's like, I want to go to hell. See all these entities, and I don't want to go there. But I love the fact that he was very passionate about exploring, and his curiosity was there. So I wanted to take a piece of that, and I wanted to carry that on.
Right on. I think we were talking a little bit before. You don't necessarily plan your shows, do you? They very much are in the present, in the moment.
Yeah,
creation.
They just manifest. I don't know who the next person is going to be. As far as the people on the program go, it's kind of like a gut feeling where I'll just say, I need to reach out to that person, or somebody, our listeners will say, you need to interview this person. And if somebody in our audience gives a referral, I usually don't even think. I just call that person up and say, hey, somebody referred you, we'll do it. As far as the questions on the Outer Limits of Inner Truth goes, I don't know what they're going to be until the interview starts. It's the only time during the day where I'm fully present. During the day, I'm also very distracted with cell phones and work and everything else. But when the show starts, it's like I'm completely present, and that's when the questions come. The spontaneity of it, I think, it's a hallmark of the program, because we don't know when the next show is going to be, who we're going to have. It just flows. It's the higher self or whatever intuitive feeling do it. It's kind of guiding force. So I'm curious to see what our next show is going to be, because people are saying, "What's your next show going to be about?" I'm like, "Well, I'm curious too. I don't know. I'll let you know when it's up."
Do you find people from? I mean, obviously, there has been our connection with the UK, but has there been other places around it from not just America that you've interviewed?
I talked to a listener this weekend from South Africa. I was like, I have people in South Africa listening to this. So I get emails from people all over the world. And there's one thing that's common about this is that the people I talk with, I think they feel alone. They think that no one else thinks the way they do. So, they're that one person, their family and friends that, says, I don't think this, I'm not comfortable with this. I feel strange. But when we connect, it's like, oh my God, we don't feel alone. So I really do love the program, is that I think we're bringing people together that have always felt alone, but now, now that there's community, not to say that we all think alike, not to say that we all have the same belief patterns, but I do think the commonality is that we're all seeking, we're all seeking things, we're all exploring. And it is in that seeking, it is in that exploration, it is in that mutual love and respect we have for one another that I think that, the show continues. So I'm really excited about the fact that I was able to connect with so many listeners, the fact that so many people across the world listen to it. So, I had no idea. So I'm just curious where this journey goes.
Well, I relate there. I mean, it's a great joy to be of service to Chung Fu. And I think one of the bonuses is I get to network and connect with a lot of awesome people. So yeah, I completely relate to that. What is your understanding of why Chung Fu is coming through at this time?
I have to tell you, why Chung Fu is coming at this particular time could be an answer that everyone's going to have to discuss for themselves. Because some people will discover Chung Fu, some people discovered Chung Fu years ago, and now they're discovering it right now. So maybe Chung Fu kind of appears in their life for any particular reason to push them along the lines. But I think collectively speaking, my gut feeling says that Chung Fu is appearing right now to offer peace, to offer consolation, to offer preparedness for the light workers on this planet, because I think we're on the cusp of a cataclysm. Either it's going to be a man-made or earth-made cataclysm that is going to create a lot of chaos. And Chung Fu, I think, is out there to help the people that are aware to be strong in their communities, to be strong in wherever they are, to help the people get through this tumultuous time. I would describe it as there's certain people on the planet that are regular season people, and then they're playoff people. Like in hockey, if you play professional sports, it really comes down to the ones who are in the playoffs. They may not contribute much when everything's fine, but when crisis happens, those are the people you turn to. And I think that's who Chung Fu is working with right now. Chung Fu is working with people that are specifically on this planet for this particular time when things get really rough, and they are there to hopefully bring peace, consolation, and strength to the people when it does happen. Hopefully, bring the world to a different place. I get this impression that Mr. Fu has been beaming out this unconditional, beautiful love, this beautiful frequency. A lot of people are inspired by it. And I think that when people latch onto his energy or they work with him, they're working with all the other people that Mr. Fu is kind of working with. And I find that people who tend to gravitate towards Mr. Fu are very cutting edge themselves and consider themselves innovative thinkers. Everyone I talk to who's going to your seminars, Jerome, is unique. There isn't a single person I've contacted or spoken with who's gone to your seminars that is, a common thinker. They're very unique. So I think it's what Mr. Fu is here for. I think Mr. Fu is here to rally the troops, get people aware, and also bring a lot of love and peace into this world, too.
Because your show's been going about 5 years now, hasn't it?
Yes.
Are there any particular areas of spiritual personal development that your audiences have been more interested in, would you say?
Yes, they love death. They love death. I went through a period of time where I did 4 shows, and getting some audience emails like, when are you going to talk about death again? I'm like, what? Like, come on, talk about it. And I had to tell them on the 4 show, like, listen, next week we're doing a show about death, okay? So they're curious about life after death. So after getting a lot of emails, I decided to put together a show called The Death Show. I was hoping that this was going to be the big blowout show. And it was 18 hours long.
Wow.
14 parts, 65 interviews with people. And 15 of them were people who died, had near-death experiences, talking about what happens. So I think that we have covered life after death more comprehensively than any radio or TV show ever. I'm completely convinced about that. And I'm convinced that we also have had people talking about this that no one else has. Now, after I aired that show, I did a show afterwards about, the happy show. I did some of the things talking about, weight loss. And about, third show in, they're like, well, when's the next show about death? I'm like, all right, so I guess they want more death. But also, I think the audience is into cutting edge teachings. They're into learning things they haven't learned before. And our recent series of guests that have been coming on especially are all talking about things that I didn't know anything about at least a year ago. We have a guest that came on talking about something called sonic geometry. Sacred geometry? No, sonic geometry. Utilizing the power of sound to heal, to grow, to evolve. So as the audience is learning about these things, as they're introducing themselves, as they're meeting these guests, I'm with them. I'm right alongside with them, saying, I'm learning with you firsthand because there's a lot of things I don't know about. So this whole point of the show, Jerome, is that it's a journey together, and I'm happy to be a part of it. But it's a lot of fun. We're having a good time for sure.
Right on. Yeah, it's an interesting time at the moment. We're working very closely with Chung Fu with ideas and teachings coming forward, and we've been creating his first online course, which is called the 21-Step Spiritual Self-Development Program with Chung Fu. And he's bringing forward working with crystals, how to open and expand your chakras and build light into your chakras and boost your light body, and loads of other deep concepts. But it's connected to, secondly, Chung Fu wants to bring a book through. And are there areas that you yourself, and as well as your audiences love the afterlife and these sorts of things? If there was a special part in the book, and we're kind of putting this question out there to people as well, what would you love, if you were going to sit down and spend your time reading the book, what would you love to see in that book?
I'll give you a list of things that I think would be interesting. First off, I would at least have one part of the book with just lessons and insights, practical application for those lessons and insights. Also talk about the vision that Mr. Fu has, or at least has seen for humanity, where humanity is going, talking about, what is the purpose of Earth at this present time? What can people do? So you have the lesson, you have actions that people can take. Also, I would put any type of symbols or colors or illustrations within that book that are going to elicit a response within the deepest recesses of a person's soul that's going to empower them. Because you read a book because you want to engage yourself, you want to engage your intellect, but I think that a book should also have that component of raising your frequency. It's going to help you. It's going to foster, fill your whole soul with love. So I think if Chung Fu puts out a book, we'll definitely talk about it extensively. We'll heavily promote it on our show, and I'm sure it'll get a great response. But whatever Mr. Fu puts out, based on what we've come to know, at least I've come to know about Mr. Fu, it's going to be beautiful. It's going to be wonderful.
Lovely. Have you interviewed anyone about crystals at all on your radio show?
No, we haven't interviewed people about crystals, and I'm curious about it. But there are a lot of topics that are out there that I'm learning about on a regular basis, because our listeners, they're awesome. They keep on sending these guest referrals, and they're saying, "Have you heard about this topic?" I said, "No." So, I have some crystals, but I'm curious about them. So
that's kind of how it started for us with old Chinese. A lot of the foundations of the teachings back in the day, he was bringing through crystals, how to work with crystals, and it's something that he's very much bringing forward in a strong way in this program. And maybe at some point you would love to, maybe that could be incorporated in the next show.
Oh yeah, I'd love to talk about that, and also work with talk about some of the other beings that Mr. Fu hangs out with, like Isa. It's awesome. So let's talk about it.
Have you interviewed any other kind of speakers around about, because there are through Chung Fu, because Sally channels Chung Fu, but on the inner planes, Chung Fu is also a channel and a gatekeeper, so he could bring in beings from, for example, Arcturus, Pleiades, Venus,
I'm open for all of that. Yeah, we haven't really covered that yet, but we should just do. You know what I think we should do? John, we should do a Chunk Fu birthday party, or maybe we could do the roast of Chunk Fu, where all these other spirits they start. You know, they making fun of Chunk Fu, do a roast of them. I'm sure that'd be unique.
Yeah, I love these sorts of ideas. Yeah. Is there something, I've probably said this already, but is there something you and your community would love to, there's the afterlife, but are there any other areas that you would love to see coming forward from the Deep Soul Connection family?
Well, Deep Soul Connection, I mean, I believe that if there's any information out there that heals or expands perception, I can't imagine how it would not be welcomed. The audience that we have in the Outer Limits, they're passionate seekers. And I did not realize the extent of how passionate they were until this past year. I've been doing the show for 5 years. In the 5th year, I'm making more connections with the audience members than I've ever had before. And they seem to be very much into finding new concepts, discovering things that haven't been discovered before, because they're curious. They have an insatiable curiosity. So whatever you guys do, I've been following you guys for a number of years. You're always putting out original, fresh content that is empowering. So whatever path you're on is the path that you're on. Whatever you guys manifest is whatever you manifest. I think once people respect you and they love with the work that you're doing, it doesn't matter what you put out, as long as it's out there and as long as it continues to help, because the intentions are so pure. And that's one thing I want people to love, the people that listen to this and watch this take away. The interviews with Mr. Fu, there's always there's no ego. There's no ego, and Mr. Fu is not looking to be worshipped. There's no, kneel before me. These are Mr. Fu's commandments. It's all about, hey, here's some love. Here's an abundance of love. Here's an abundance of peace. Take this. And I'm not going to charge you for the love of the peace. That's awesome. And I wish all those other channel spirits out there would do that, because there's some channel spirits, you talk about, they're like, oh, worship me. I'm like, no. No. That's where I think I wonder if there's a human ego involved, if they're really channeling your spirit, because, any being that wants you to worship it, Mr. Fu is cool. Mr. Fu is like, stand with you.
Right on. Well, thank you so much for being with us today and coming and hanging out.
It's a great honor to be with you, Jerome. You and your family are terrific and wonderful. I love you all so much. And, it's been a wonderful journey with you guys so far. It's great. It's a lot of fun. And every time Mr. Fu comes on the show, people are like, when's Mr. Fu coming back? I'm like, coming back soon. So right now, I don't know what the next show on the Outer Limits Truth Radio show is going to be, but I know that if I don't put another show about death pretty soon, we'll start getting the things saying, death! More shows about death! Coming up soon.
Well, where can people go and hear this show?
They can go to outerlimitsradio.com, outerlimitsradio.com. In addition to the Outer Limits Truth Radio show, I also co-host a program called Heart Warriors Radio with metaphysical teachers Jeff Casper and Yona Brindis, and we go very, very deep. These are programs that just go specifically into healing, soul level discussions. I would call them very advanced, whereas the Outer Limits Truth will talk about things deeply, but Heart Warriors is a different type. But we did those 2 programs they can hear. They can also listen to both shows at outerlimitsradio.com, and they can also listen to the 5 interviews that we did with Chunk Fu on outerlimitsradio.com.
Right on. Thank you so much, my brother.
Thank you so much. Wishing upon you an abundance of love and peace. Thank you for having me.
Blessed be. Take care.
Joe.
Bye-bye.